Hello, welcome to One, a single session blog where we talk about all things related to single session therapy. My name is Alicia and I'm coming to you from the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe on the shores of Lake Ontario in beautiful Ontario, Canada. So today we are going to do a part two. We're going to do part two of why would we be doing single session therapy. And the reason for this is because I actually think, from a person who seems to be a little bit partial to the single session model, that there are many reasons to have this service as part of a menu of services that we're offering to people as they engage with mental health. So one of the things that I think is important to recognize is that I am not saying that single session therapy is the be all end all for everyone. That's actually not how it works. What we know, however, and there is a fair chunk of research now that's emerging, not as much as in some other fields, but at least we're getting there, is that we know that roughly around 60% of all people who access a single session mental health in the walk-in setting anyways, feel like they got what they needed from that one session. So that's about 60% of all people. That is very high from a client satisfaction perspective. Now there's some difficulties around the research because of course people don't come back. So how do we see about the outcomes over time? But it's really important to note that upon leaving, most people, 60%, actually feel like they got what they needed. Now, when you think of this kind of from a big picture perspective, the system, at least in Canada here, that we operate within for mental health services is a very medical model. So this whole idea of like assessment, diagnosis, treatment, and all this kind of stuff comes from a very Western medical model orientation. Now, what we know, of course, is that there are many people who don't actually come from that orientation. There's a great movement to kind of decolonize all of these systems and all of these things that we operate within. And I think that mental health seems to be one of the last to move in that direction. So we recognize that when we implement this service, again, as a menu of services, not even necessarily as a standalone, I mean, although sometimes about 60% of all people think that it's quite useful, but if we integrate that as part of a series of options for how people engage with mental health, we are actually creating a much more efficient service delivery model. Now here in Canada for a long time we have these wait list issues, especially in children's mental health. When I was working in a children's mental health clinic, sometimes the wait list for services could be up to a year, which is a very long time when you're 6 years old to be in trouble or to be having difficulties and to not get that kind of support. So people started to be like, what are we going to do about this? How do we see people more quickly? So initially, the mental health walk-in model actually was just about managing wait lists. And then I think what happened later on is people started to realize, actually, this seems to be working. There seems to be a lot of people that just are benefiting from having one session at one time, specifically at the time that they choose that is convenient for them. Now, that of course leaves the 40% that are outside of the 60 who may benefit from longer term services, but it opens up space and avoids bottlenecks when the first point of contact actually is the single session instead of an assumption that everybody is going to need therapy for years. That's what stops the system from being efficient. That's how we begin to see more people, is we start from the least to the most intrusive. The least being you can access services when you want, on your time, when you are ready. If they request more, if they believe more would be helpful, we can offer that too, because we don't have wait lists that are getting in the way of the services that people want and could benefit from. So, to sum it up, single session, especially the mental health walk-in clinic single session, is awesome. Let's get excited. Let's do this. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.